There we go.
Everyone, welcome back to the Trevor Report. My name's Trevor, obviously, and I'm joined with David Winkler, or the Philly underscore conservative over on Instagram. And yeah, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and like what you do?
So I'm just kind of like a normal guy. I served about 16, 17 years in the military. Started off in the Marines, went over the Army. Was also a city cop at one point. Now I run a business in Philly. Um, and I do have a somewhat of a political past. I did run for office at one point for Congress back in 2020. As well as a state senator over in New Jersey. But
Ooh,
yeah, there's not much to me besides I'm a conservative voice that just speaks. I'm not an influencer type, but just a concerned citizen and a veteran, man, that just feels like I need to speak up on different issues. So
yeah, that's I certainly know the feeling. You don't have to get into too much detail if you don't want to, but like your military background, how
mm,
much do you feel comfortable going into it? Like,
I don't mind. I mean, I'm
all right,
pretty transparent on my military stuff. So
yeah. So you were a combat veteran in the Marine Corps and the US Army. My
yeah,
one question is the banter still alive?
the
Like
banter,
does
the
yeah,
camaraderie kind of rivalry, yeah,
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 yeah.
the rivalry's still there.
What was the biggest act of hazing you got from the other side?
Oh, they tried, but there wasn't much that they could do because by that time I already had multiple combat deployments when I came over. So the
Okay.
hazing usually is around like the rookies, not the ones that I mean, they'll give me banter of the whole Marines ain't shit compared to the Army kind of thing, but it's not. It wasn't really like hazing. Now hazing when I first came to the Marines, that was off the damn chain. That was kind of fun though. Um, I mean, it's like a giant frat party.
Ah,
Uh, Yeah, so they kick down my door at like 2 a.m. and have like wild turkey to you name it and be like, hey, we're gonna drink, and then do physical fitness at like 5 6 a.m. in the morning. So well, it wasn't a whole lot of sleeping, but that was good times with good buddies or my brothers. So I was the infantry over there in Bow, so
did you ever have to scrub the bathroom floors with a toothbrush? I hear that's a thing,
yeah.
apparently.
Oh, it was the catwalks as they would call them, where you had to we have to use these scuzz brushes or these brushes, and we would brush the ground. But yeah, it happens. But
Yeah,
it's all good fun.
that's cool. You've talked about a business that you run. Do you want to like talk to like tell more about it, especially in the New Jersey area during the lockdowns? That must have been
No, so
fantastic.
I'm in Philly running a business, but
Oh, okay.
so I didn't have the New Jersey area. I was dealing more with law enforcement stuff. I don't really go into much about what I was doing there, but I was dealing with the ports. So I was there though for the El Summer of Love in New York and got called out for that aspect. Um, but yeah, the Philly area, I run a like a storage facility in the Philly area. So that's my business over here. So it's pretty cool. Kind of a weird segment from military law enforcement to this, but it
Yeah.
ultimately fitted for me.
Hmm. It's
So
not as weird of a segue as you think. There's a lot of people who are into law enforcement that, because of recent events, have transitioned into politics. It's fairly
yeah,
common now, you
yeah.
know. But
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we have the leadership to guide this country, especially in times of you know divide. I think we're really good
yeah,
at conflict resolution and problem solving here, where you kind of have to tell both the left and the right to kind of like chill and sit down a little bit because. I mean, I just saw that, they're looking at the indictment of Trump over, possibly Tuesday. And I'm like, this is a scary thing because it reminds me of being in like those countries that I operated in where I'm like I expect that from them. I don't expect this kind of behavior from the United States.
Yeah.
So
Well, mommy will not always understand why daddy does the things that he does, but at the end of the day, daddy is always right. But
yeah,
yeah, you know,
yeah,
um, the Trump indictment thing is like it's crazy because this has been struck down by a court twice now in favor of
mhm,
Trump, and it's just gonna like this is why like I stopped watching the news, because I already know what's going to happen. He's gonna get
yeah,
the thing in the handcuffs and the perp walk. That's gonna be the media story for the next 6 months. Trump got indicted. He's officially a criminal or whatever because
yeah.
our society's guilty until proven innocent instead of the other way around because all the liberals died at Woodstock. And then there's that's what happens when you take too much LSD. But there
Yeah.
was but then I know that 6 months down the line, he's gonna take it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's gonna be like, this is clearly a political indictment. And then the news media is gonna go, Trump appointed judges infringe on justice or whatever. And then something psyop, and
Hmm.
then either everything implodes or everything gets worse, basically. So,
Well,
which is fun.
I don't even think it's going to make it that far. One, because I'm expecting that Monday something is going to happen to where they're going to be like, "Oh, we're not ready to indict," and they're going to push it a few weeks.
Mm.
I feel like the left is they don't want to make Trump a martyr, and that's exactly what's going to end up happening. Musk is right on Twitter to say, "Hey, what you're going to end up doing is making Trump more popular than you really want him going into the 2024 election cycle."
Mm-hmm.
And so the left has to really weigh this, because if a federal prosecutor or the federal prosecutors didn't want to touch this, there's probably good reason, because they probably couldn't make the charge stick.
Yeah.
So you're looking at a state attorney, that thinks, or the city of Manhattan actually. You think that this DA is going to be able to land it where federal prosecutors won't? So the issue becomes is I really do believe that the Democrats are going to have a talk with this DEA, and they're probably going to tell him to stand down before Tuesday even happens. Because I got to be quite honest with you, I think that I think what the Democrats play here is to try to create another January 6th incident here, where I got to say the Republicans have got to be very careful, unless they're willing to stand their ground on the aspect of what I would say, hey, the thought process on the government's become too tyrannical in this behavior. Are they going to have a protest where they stay put? They can't be, if you're going to be emboldened to protest, you're going to have to stay put this time. You're going to have to say, hey, you know what? Enough is enough of political indictments to political
Mm-hmm.
persecution of this family. And I don't know if I've seen this kind of boldness or heart by the Republican Party. They're very passive. They're very
Mm-hmm.
turn the other cheek. I mean, we've seen it from 2016, where the Russian collusion thing. Then you go on to the Ukraine, the two impeachments. Then you go on to how
The
they've attacked
Russian pee
Melania.
tape.
Yeah, they've attacked Melania, to even this lady came out before, the porn star Hush Money. They do everything in their power, but the Republicans stay hoping, or
Mm.
stay in this mindset of passive. You know, I would almost go to Reagan's thing of appeasement, and
Mm.
eventually, and because we're seeing it in every single aspect of our life on the conservative side. We're seeing our schools, the
Mm-hmm.
churches, to you name it. Like, even the fact that we have to fight drag queen story time, or we have to have these kind of conversations of what a woman is. Like, so eventually you're gonna be given an ultimatum at a certain point, unless you stand your ground as the citizenry, which is a God-given right given to us underneath the Constitution, to say, hey, you know what, enough is enough. And I'm not saying or promoting any violence. What I'm saying is protests. Peaceful protests, to where you have to bring the government to the table.
Mm.
Um, and I don't think Republicans are really good at protesting. I don't really see Republicans protest. I see Democrats protest. But I do agree with Trump calling for a protest. I do
Ah,
believe that, something needs to happen where we say, hey, you know what? Let's talk. Um, but it's kind of, I'm really saddened and kind of like disappointed to see
mm-hmm.
Democrats do this move. I would expect this from what I saw from, like, countries like Libya, where you had Gaddafi, where you had Afghanistan, Iraq, where you see them play the regime change wars and jail their political opponents. But I didn't expect this from the American left. So
Ah. Well, they're definitely getting their priorities in order. All of their voters, or the majority of voters for Democrats, just live in these just terrible crime-ridden cities, like especially New York, um, where it's something like no, this is California. In 2019, there was information circulating around that the rats carry bubonic plague in Los Angeles, the Black Death,
yeah,
and everyone was concerned about whether or not someone with a penis should go into the woman's restroom or not. That was the priority. Like, this is completely
yeah,
unsustainable, you know.
yeah, because they're very
I'm sure in
they
Philly, you know,
yeah.
like, oh
Yeah, I'm in
geez.
Philly. We're having a mayoral race right now in Philly.
Hmm.
And it's the definition of insanity again with the candidates that they're producing. I mean, here's an interesting thing was, as they're getting ready for the mayoral race,
Hmm.
about 4 to 5 city council members dropped out of the city council, left the seats open, and were running for mayor. So like and this isn't a time frame where we're dealing with, huge amount of violent crime here. Last year we had over 500 homicides. This year we're on track to do the same thing, and this is like a 3 year issue here where it's been like that. We
That's
also have
1,500 people. Oh,
yeah,
geez.
and then on top of
Ah,
that, we have a ridiculous amount of theft is another issue here. So whether it's the catalytic converters to our cars being stolen to just somebody walking down the street and just getting robbed. I mean, it's produced a um such a climate that you have Starbucks moving out, we've had Rite Aids move out, CVS, we've had all these big name businesses decide to uproot and leave Philly, which is kind of really hurting us when it comes to providing that socioeconomic need to get us out of the crime rate, but or that we're having. But I'm like, I don't know how this next mayor is going to do what they need to do, but um, I find it interesting. This is the interesting talking point that I'll use is that the Democrats are so in shambles right now here in Philly that they're in talks of bringing back stop and frisk. And I never thought that I would hear Democrats lobby for the very thing they called racist, but you even have all the mayoral candidates that are Democrat, a lot of them black, being like, I want stop and frisk back. I'm like, oh,
hmm.
interesting. Um,
Yeah, the
so that's
1994 crime bill was proposed by Democrats and passed by a Democrat legislator,
yeah.
you know?
It's insane too because we're also home to Kensington Avenue, which if you're not familiar with Kensington
Mm.
Avenue, it is the free shoot up zone area where you can do all drugs legal. Which it's not only just you can do drugs legally there, it attracts drug dealers from all over the United States to do their business in Kensington
Mm.
Avenue because no, they're untouchable. Whether it's the local law enforcement all the way to the feds aren't patrolling Kensington Avenue. So you kind of just provided a safe spot for organized crime to do their business there.
Hmm.
It looks like a third world country if you ever go over there. Like all the businesses are shut down, and you have record numbers of people on the street, just looking like the Walking Dead, all hunched over and drugged up.
Ah.
I've done what I could to go out there, and I've given out cans of Narcan, as well as like clothes and other stuff like that. But it's funny, anytime that we come in to try to give aid to it, or people like me, we get pulled aside from the drug dealers over there and say, "Hey, you're ruining my business." So it's like it's a very scary thing because they'll get kind of violent with you. for being over there, and the
If
police
someone
just
did
sitting
that
there.
to me, I'd punch him in the face if I was helping some dude who's passed out, foaming at the mouth, give him some Narcan, and then some like loser like grabs and shoulder goes, "Hey, what are you doing? Why are you're ruining my business?" I just hit him at that point. Like that, I would have
Well,
hit
what's
my limit.
interesting, what's interesting is they're usually armed, and
Hmm.
what's funny is like the cops will sit there and they'll not do anything, and I'm like, okay. So I mean, I always carry everywhere I go. I just tell people straight up, I'm a huge proponent of the Second Amendment, so I carry everywhere in Philly. But it kind of becomes that like, you know, choose your battle there. So I kind of I don't really
Yeah.
mess with the drug dealers there. One, I'm in Philly, and Krasner would fry me if I ever had an altercation like that with drug dealers. He wouldn't take the side of the good citizenry or the law-abiding citizen. He'll take the side of the drug dealer.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the unfortunate truth. But I think you're onto something with the inner cities and the way Democrats are in their mindset. They're backing this dumb play because I always ask the question on Instagram. If you ever go live with me or you ever see me go
Hmm.
live, I always bring in on my lives panels from the left and the right. So
Hmm.
I try to keep it neutral so I can hear from both sides, and we have the uncomfortable debates. From the left, I always ask the question to them, like, okay, so say you achieve a Trump indictment,
Hmm.
how are we going to unify as a nation then? Like, how do you see us then being able to unify? Because they always say that, like, we're going to unify. Oh, America's going to heal after Trump's arrested. Like, there's still like 77 million or however, I think it was like 78 million or whatever that voted for Trump. They're automatically just going to fall in line with you. Like, I don't understand your mindset.
The
So,
77 million you called um Nazis for 4 years, like
like,
because like that implies that if you're left to your own devices, you're going to commit the worst atrocity in human history. That's what that word
yeah,
means. And like I've gone into like extensive detail on like critical race theory and fascism and all that stuff. And it's like it's the same philosophy. It's the
oh
exact
yeah,
same, but to be called that while they are that is just you eventually just get tired of the gaslighting and you just ignore them and then talk to interesting people instead, which is kind of my development there, I guess. But
it's quite
yeah.
it's wishful thinking. They only know one side, so they only understand their leftism and think that everybody is just going to just kumbaya and get along with them. And I'm like,
uh,
America's never been more divided than I've seen right now, to where I'm like, this is the dumbest play you could make. You're correct on critical race theory. I have a lot of these advocates that I argue with, a lot of these far left black power types that I purposely bring on to say, hey, let's have this discussion. But
ooh.
what's interesting about critical race theory is it didn't. I find it funny because they always sell it as history, like package history, and you're going to learn this history class, right? I'm like, one, that's a damn lie, because I've
Well,
read a whole lot of.
you can learn the history of Jewish power and how they own the banks, but that's not
Yeah,
truthful, you know.
yeah. But so it's funny because I'm like, as soon as I throw out the word intersectionality to them, they get very frustrated, because then it brings in the one of the co-editors, Kimberly Crenshaw, into
Mm-hmm.
the mix of
Yeah.
1989, and her in what we're dealing with nowadays, where all these intersecting lines of oppression
A
and all that.
coalition of the
And I
margins to attack the center, and the center being a euphemism for white people, and
yeah,
white people being a euphemism for all of society because these people are insane.
yeah. And it's crazy because I'm like, I always ask them, like, how is being white, being a man, what is it, being heterosexual or cis, or the lovely term of cis, and what is it, there's another one that they throw out there, or being native born to the United States makes four levels of an oppressor. And I'm like, this makes no sense. I'm like, logically, it makes no sense.
Hmm.
I'm like, you're what you're doing is inciting a race war, and you're giving
Yeah.
into it. And they get so mad whenever, because I get called the usual racial terms because I'm biracial. I'm like a Kaepernick.
Hmm.
They get so upset when I don't take the Kaepernick approach of everybody's just racist.
Your
Um,
parents who took you in are are evil.
yeah,
Your
like
parents
and
who gave you every opportunity in the world.
yeah, and that's what I say is like I'm an exact Kaepernick to where I have this same situation where I have the two white adopted parents, but I don't come out and create a cartoon where I'm like my white parents are racist because they didn't understand my hair texture, back in the day. Like it makes no sense. Um,
I don't
it,
understand
it,
my own hair texture. I would never expect my parents to, you know.
yeah, like they didn't even understand their own hair texture, and they were German. So it like and I didn't understand their culture either. So it's to me, like as I said, America needs this. I don't know how to fix it or what we can do. I just speak on the issues and let the chips fall where they may in sense of my lives and all that. If that's where you found me. Um,
I
so
was actually I send too many messages on Instagram to be able to
yeah,
find it, but someone suggested to me like a month ago to talk to you, and I only
yeah.
like just got the notification like last week. But
Yeah, I mean, I stay banned. I was, at one point I was one of the top voices on LinkedIn. I got permanently banned on there. Facebook
mm,
was like the same thing. I have to always like redo my accounts, and it's because I'm not taking the liberal position
mm,
on things where I'm like, wow, you always call us fascists, but I'm like, bro, like what you've been doing to me social media wise and trying to silence me because I come from a middle ground. Yeah, my
mm,
name is Philly Conservative on here, but I'm an independent, but I lean more conservative. So I kind
yeah,
of I kind of watch both. I watch both sides of the aisle go at it, and I don't really the way that I look at things. I'll take an issue, but I will scan every
mm,
article to you name it, but I'll look at it from both the left and the right side, and I'll make my own decision on where I fall on the subject. It just
mm,
so happens that majority of subjects I'm landing on the conservative side because I'm like
yeah,
the left is full of shit on a lot of these issues.
mm,
So I'm very neutral on when it comes to it, but I'm very like I go based upon fact and logic. And
yeah,
that's what I've noticed is failing at the left side right now because it's all emotions.
mm,
They're not articulating their arguments in fact. They'll come with me at me with emotion, and I'm like emotions. I think it was Ben Shapiro where he's like emotions. Facts don't care about feelings.
facts don't care about your feelings, folks. You know.
Yeah, like the Ben Shapiro where I'm like, yeah, bro, like I do agree with it.
Mm.
So
When you raise the
it, it,
minimum wage,
it's
it raises the rent. When you raise the rent, you have to build affordable housing. To build affordable housing, get the tax bill to build the affordable housing.
yeah, like the way he goes on though, I'm like, bro, like
Yeah.
Ben Shapiro, like slow down a little bit.
You
Um,
could watch him at 70 at 0.75 speed on YouTube. He sounds like a normal person.
yeah, yeah, because he sounds like he's just high as hell, just going for it. I'm a huge fan of, and that was another thing too. In 2016, I don't know if you guys did it, or you did it personally, but I went away from like legacy media, and
Oh
I
yeah.
started going more towards like the YouTube types, and tried to
Hmm.
listen to their takes. So like Steven Crowder, I would listen to him to
Yeah.
Mark Dice, Ben Shapiro, like even Liberty Hangout. I would listen to or Breitbart stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, and then I would also look at the left, which I do it so that other people. You know how Mark Dice says I'll watch it so other people don't have to watch it. So I'll
Yeah.
watch like the left side. So I even go as far as I keep watch on people like Brian Tyler Cohen, and that's how far left that I would watch to where I'm like, Jesus Christ, Brian, how did you even come to this conclusion? Me and Brian go at it all the time. If you don't know who Brian Tyler Cohen is, like a progressive talking head, but it's quite interesting.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I just kind of give my point of view on things, man. And you're always welcome in my lives, though it gets a little hostile a little bit sometimes. But
I don't
hey,
look
we do
look
our
I
best.
hey, you know what? Maybe we can schedule some kind of speaker thing later. I'd love to
Yeah.
do a CRT debate. I'll
Oh
be
yeah.
professional. I won't be anything like this. I like to keep these things formal, but I'll actually do my hair. I'll have some kind of collar, you know. But yeah. So
I'd be
anything
looking
you
like a
want?
Call of Duty character, man. That I mean, I got the whole beard and everything now. I'm
Hey,
out.
hey,
I've
you know
already
what?
said, hey,
You know what? Could the COD Zombies Cold War, like their outfits and they were well groomed and it was fresh.
yeah.
But yeah, anything you want to shout out before I end the thing?
No, I mean, there's, to me, as I said, I went into this and, you know,
Mm,
kind of prepared, but not prepared in the sense of what I want to talk about. But, I
yeah.
just think, as I said, the climate is really what I want to talk about right now. I mean, I went with, wanting to talk about the city crime here, but ultimately, this Trump issue is got to take, precedent over that because I think it's a more dangerous thing right now
Mm,
than the crime here because never in my lifetime would I thought that we would try to arrest a former U.S. president based upon a political thing. This isn't like, and me serving in law enforcement like I did. This isn't even a
yeah.
criminal statute that I could think of, even at a state level. I don't know what they're trying to.
It's orange hyphen man hyphen bad, section two, it's section 283 or something like that. I'm sure it's in the New York Code somewhere.
And to me, I mean, this leads to a problem where how many times are prosecutors going to be able to come after this man's family, and we don't draft some sort of legislation that leads to the removal of the immunity of some of these prosecutors, so that if they keep because Trump was right, they're not after him,
Hmm.
they're after us in the sense of what they're doing. Because that's the way I look at it. If they're able to do this to him, then they're going to do it to the common man. So if you end up pissing off the government to a point where they just continuously do this and there's no protection for you as the common man, because
Hmm.
obviously Trump doesn't have the ability to sue the shit out of, every single prosecutor that I believe is prosecutorial misconduct is what
Hmm.
I'm seeing is the ethics aspect of these prosecutors. You're going out of your way to do this. There wasn't like a crime committed in your presence. There wasn't a crime that is going on in your city. There wasn't like
Hmm.
anything where you're doing your job. You had to go out of your way to create this.
The
And so
inbox
I'm
is
like,
full on the important stuff.
yeah,
So
like
they're just being lazy and doing the Trump stuff instead.
yeah, and
You know?
they're doing it to make a name for themselves. Like Letitia James is
Hmm.
that AG where I'm like this should be an ethics complaint at this point to the bar association. Same
Hmm.
thing for this DA over there in Manhattan is what I'm looking at is you've already known that this has happened twice. Like you're looking at Michael Avenatti being like one of the first
Yeah.
ones that was the Stormy Daniels attorney here. We all
Didn't
know
he
what
like
he went to
isn't
jail for extortion of Nike.
yeah, which wow, like for for a creepy porn lawyer, like that's some balls, to like go after one of America's top companies. You know, they have
Yeah,
sweatshops in China to bring to so they could ship the shoes here cheaply and make them, and you decide to fraud them. Like
and their
bravo,
their
you know.
their whole case their whole case too relies on Michael Cohen. And I'm like, last time I checked, the whole Brady law that applies to, law enforcement, where
uh,
we're not allowed to testify if we were found to have lied, right? But this
mm,
civilian, you're going to use this civilian to testify who was found guilty of lying to Congress. So to me, I'm like, this is going to be an interesting thing because an indictment's one thing, but you're going to
it's
have
gonna
to
be
be able to
funny.
prove because that's all they have to do is like, oh, okay, Michael Cohen, you're not really eligible to testify because
Mm,
you have shown a track record that your word is not your bond because you got literally found guilty of lying to Congress. So I don't know how he's going to get up on a stand and be
yeah,
seen as a reliable witness or a reliable, yeah, I would say witness there. So I was like, this all this just doesn't make sense to me. and
Hmm.
unless there's something more. And this all comes in the same week they did it to Putin too in the international court, which I do find funny because I'm like, how are you going to arrest Putin? First of all, which one of you international countries are going to go over there? You all know you ain't. And then if he goes and steps outside of the country and he goes to like one of these like, world whatever, you're not going to even touch him there. I laugh at the international community because I know that for a fact they're not going to do anything to Putin.
No, blackface Trudeau is gonna come with the handcuffs and is gonna manhandle Putin, slam him onto the ground and cuff the things behind his
Yeah.
back.
We need like a
Artistically
celebrity box.
screeching
Yeah.
Slava Ukraine.
Yeah, we need like celebrity boxing where Putin and Trudeau go and box it out. I would love to see that. I'd have Dana White set that up for UFC possibly.
Oh, that
But
that'd be a complete and total bloodbath.
because
But
there's so much
yeah,
that I could talk to you about today, and I know we don't have
yeah,
all the time, but I mean, I was looking at the quite recently to China, and it was India, and there was I think it was Iran. They were doing training exercises together
yeah.
at the same time. Like I'm like, bro, like there's so much going on here where I'm like, I'm trying to figure out what the deception is, trying to figure out what the diversion or the distraction is that
Yeah.
that's going on. It's hard to keep up because I'm like, I didn't have this on my bingo card for 2023.
Hmm.
So
Well, it's basically the BRICS nations end up destroying the US dollar, and then the Western countries come up with a central bank digital currency. But that's for Wednesday's show with someone else. But in the meantime, if you want to go follow this brilliant man, David Winkler, over on Instagram, click his Instagram link down below in the description. And I will catch you all in the next one. You all have a pleasant day.